The grand strategy is 2 years in unfolding, and the invasion's first battles are fought politely in quiet English country houses converted to the usages of war. Some Britishers feel that Montgomery ought to have Eisenhower's job, but Monty accepts Ike's leadership and with him lays the plans for Operation Overlord. Only de Gaulle, from his exile in London, can guarantee the cooperation of French resistance forces. To the surprise of some who know the unyielding Frenchman, he pledges this support to Eisenhower. Men from the Scottish Highlands and the coal towns of Wales welcome Ike's leadership. I have complete confidence, Ike tells them, that an aroused democracy is the most formidable fighting machine that can be devised. Physical training is a weapon, Ike says, one that each nation owes its soldiers before committing them to battle. In a matter of days, these warlike gymnastics will give way to the violent postures of war itself. The Prime Minister wants to land with the troops on D-Day and is just barely dissuaded. What Churchill knows, the lowliest GI senses. The invasion cannot be far off. 200,000 men in battle dress flood southern England. They are, as Ike says, a great coiled human spring. Now there is no room to turn back. Postponement for more than 48 hours could reveal the plan to German intelligence. D-Day will be June 5, 6, or 7, depending upon the weather. Eisenhower wants good visibility, a calm sea, late rising moon, and low inshore winds. He wants these. He may have to settle for less. At the last possible moment, with the entire first wave ready to embark, June 5 is scrubbed. GIs and Tommies do what they have always done best. They wait. As Eisenhower banters with these paratroops, his mind dwells on his air marshal's prediction that in the invasion's first hours, most of these men will be lost. An estimate that fortunately proved wrong. Ike consults his commanders for the last time. The weather is chancy, and the final choice is Ike's alone. All right, he says, we move. It is 30 minutes before H hour. Soldiers, weighed down by 100 pounds of invasion gear, weighed down by the terrible uncertainty, rendezvous off the coast of Normandy. At sea are tens of thousands. In England, 2 million reserves wait, but on the beach, in this first wave, are just 3,000 men. On Utah and Omaha, the issue is in doubt. On other beaches, there is confusion and suspense, but a precarious foothold has been achieved. And an anxious world has a right to the news.
This is New York. We interrupt this program to bring you a news bulletin. We have just heard from London a statement by General Eisenhower, which begins,
People of Western Europe. A landing was made this morning on the coast of France by troops of the Allied Expeditionary Force. This landing is part of the concerted United Nations plan for the liberation of Europe, made in conjunction with our great Russian allies. I have this message for all of you. Although the initial assault may not have been made in your own country, the hour of your liberation is approaching.
To Nazi supermen, life is more precious than honor. The choice of hands up or heels up is an easy one. On the road to Berlin, Eisenhower's men capture and destroy forces totaling more than their own strength. Hitler has boasted that the Third Reich will endure 1,000 years. Allied armies bring it low in just 11 months. The truly heroic figure of the war, Ike says, is G.I. Joe. He has given us an example of loyalty and courage that will live in our hearts as long as we admire those qualities in men. The man who had conquered Germany would now capture London. And a happy conquest it is. For those who line the streets, their first hint that Eisenhower is no ordinary hero. These English are the first to feel Ike's rare ability to reach out to the most distant member of the largest crowd.
Whether or not I am not Londoner myself, I've got just as much right to be down in that crowd yelling as you have. The great difference that I see in this city, and then I couldn't see is that we can now have crowds. There can be happy gatherings. You don't have to listen for a motor in the sky and wonder what is about the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just seen and listened to the words of a great commander. A man who has proved not only his capacity to organize and regulate the movements of armies, but to stir men's hearts, and who has shown a capacity for making great nations march together more truly united than they ever have before.
Stand up so they can see you, George Marshall has to tell Eisenhower. And 4 million New Yorkers shout themselves hoarse. One headline reads, "We have met the general and he is ours." But the reverse is more prophetic. Eisenhower has met the people, and they are his. Although he cannot know it, this moment marks the start of a second, long and tumultuous crusade.
Mr. Mayor and New Yorkers, as my first act as a citizen of the city of New York, I want to issue to the mayor a word of warning. New York simply can't do this to a Kansas farmer boy and keep its reputation for sophistication.
General, your name has been brought up several times in regarding possible political office. Would you care to comment on that, sir?
Ever since I have first heard my name connected with possible political office, I have consistently declined to consider such a contingency. My mind has not changed with respect to that subject one iota. I am a soldier. I belong to the Army. And the Army is truly national. It lives to serve the nation and nobody else, no party, no special group.
Gentlemen, you have summoned me on behalf of millions of your fellow Americans to lead a great crusade for freedom in America and freedom in the world. I know something of the solemn responsibility of leading a crusade. I have led one.
Eisenhower has never before taken sides in politics. Supporters wonder, will he rely on his great popularity, or will he make a fighting campaign? Adlai Stevenson has the advantages of a personal gift for eloquence and the support of a majority party. Republican strategists can relax. This is an Eisenhower they didn't know existed.
The always right and never wrong chief of the party now in power has made fantastic charges against me because of something I said in 1945. After the war's end, I voiced an optimistic hope and belief that Russian foreign policy was not then hostile, but was influenced by a desire for workable friendship with the American people. Now, listen to the man who is decrying this 1945 position of mine. In 1948, 3 years later, and after repeated instances of Soviet duplicity, the same never wrong man said, "I like old Uncle Joe Stalin. Joe is a decent fellow."
The Republican candidate has given himself to the whirlwind, the tempest of slander which has grown strong on our fear of communism. He hopes he can ride into office on it, but he may find it stronger than he is. At any rate, it is a strange ending for his great crusade. What started out as a matter of principle, like Cromwell's crusade, is ending up in the butchery of reputations of innocent men and women. And that's tragic. That's tragic.
"Don't Let Them Take It Away" is the theme song of the Washington press agents. But before November 4th rolls around, they will be stuck with it. Let me tell you plainly what I want to cast away with the aid of a Republican Congress and Republican officials in the states. First, we shall cast away the incompetent, the unfit, the cronies, and the chiselers. And it won't take years of congressional investigations and a lot of tax money to clean out the whole mess.
As for myself, I began this campaign, and I have attempted to maintain it on the simple theme of talking sense. Talking sense, by my definition, means facing squarely up to the issues that take on the greatest importance to the audience at hand.
That job requires a personal trip to Korea. Only in that way could I learn how best to serve the American people in the cause of peace. I shall go to Korea.
The Korean War must end and will end, as we all know, only when Moscow is convinced that the people of this country, Republicans and Democrats alike, are united in unshakable determination to stand firm.
It has been suggested that anyone wanting to settle the Korean War should go to Moscow and not to Korea. This is said with a solemn air of great political sophistication, as if the speaker had just discovered that Moscow was, after all, the headquarters of the Communist Party. This suggestion shows signs of progress in the political education of men who not long ago talked happily about Chinese communists as harmless agrarian reformers. My most solemn hope is that men who talk this language are never allowed, in the name of the American people, to go to Moscow or some future Yalta or Potsdam.
My friends, it is trite to say that this is a day of dedication rather than of triumph. But I am indeed as humble as I am proud of the decision that the American people have made. And I recognize clearly the weight of the responsibilities you have placed upon me, and I assure you that I shall never, in my service in Washington, give short weight to those responsibilities.
With special feelings of sorrow and of solemn gratitude, we think of those who were called upon to lay down their lives in that far-off land to prove once again that only courage and sacrifice can keep freedom alive upon the earth. To the widows and orphans of this war, and to those veterans who bear disabling wounds, America renews tonight her pledge of lasting devotion and care. In this struggle, we have seen the United Nations meet the challenge of aggression, not with pathetic words of protest, but with deeds of decisive purpose. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of 16 different countries have stood as partners beside us throughout these long and bitter months. America's thanks go to each.
At UN checkpoints, GIs captured in Korea start the long journey home. It is the first American military action that doesn't end in a clear-cut victory for us. To these men and to those who waited for them, it is victory enough. A stronger UN now hears a remarkable proposal.
The United States pledges before you, and therefore before the world, its determination to help solve the fearful atomic dilemma, to devote its entire heart and mind to find the way by which the miraculous inventiveness of man shall not be dedicated to his death, but consecrated to his life.
Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace plan is a success almost from the start. Young scientists of 30 countries are welcomed here for study. Even Russia calls Ike's proposal important, but remains aloof, and the president at last announces that free nations will go ahead without her. A blanket of water shields observers as they learn how radiation may be used to preserve food. This is a critical subject in countries still gripped by famine. This single peaceful use of radiation may someday save millions from starvation. are given the secrets of atomic technology. Many carry home an increased respect for the United States and its way of life. In the summer of 1955, Dwight Eisenhower carries to Geneva a far more startling proposal. It provokes doubt and disagreement even among some of his own advisors. The Soviets have brought their first team to Geneva. Ike proposes that both the United States and Russia permit open aerial inspection of their territories. Neither country need then fear surprise attack. The Russian reaction is stunned silence, and the meeting ends without Soviet comment. It is Eisenhower's first encounter with a jovial new Communist Party boss, who is said to be talented at propaganda. He will soon persuade the bearded Bulganin to take the back seat all alone. Right now, the propaganda victory belongs to Eisenhower. His open skies plan captures the public imagination. For a time, the spirit of Geneva, set free by Ike, generates a wave of hope and a refreshing atmosphere of good feeling. People agree that mutual suspicion and distrust are responsible for the dangerous arms race. Eisenhower, they say, is a fair-minded statesman who has taken the lead in attempting to end this suspicion. Back in Denver, Eisenhower enjoys a work-and-play vacation from his heavy pace. Golf takes the pressures off. His game would be a lot better, he says, if only somebody would do something about farm price supports. On this late September day, Ike manages to play 27 holes. From Press Secretary Haggerty, we hear alarming news. The first description of the attack has been changed from mild to moderate. We wonder who will run the government. There is no way to transfer control so long as the president can function. And who can say when that point is passed? All eyes now turn to Richard Nixon. Gamely, he tries to reassure an anxious world.
I have been asked a number of questions as to the political and other implications of the president's illness. My answer to all these questions is to express the concern I share with all the American people for the early and complete recovery of the president. Compared with this, all other questions aren't worthy of comment. In the meantime, the business of government will continue as usual, under an administration which has been organized by the president to operate effectively in his absence. And the people of America, the people of other countries, can be sure that the United States will continue to go forward under the Eisenhower foreign and domestic policies.
Reassurances prove true. Ike is recovering. On his pajamas are embroidered the words, "Much better, thanks." And he wears a 39-cent tie, a gift of two newsmen. He is much better. But to look at him, we find it hard to accept one doctor's guess that Eisenhower may at last be well enough to run for a second term as president. Surely, we feel, the man ought to retire, take a well-earned rest. Ike is welcomed back by a Washington crowd in an affectionate mood.
I am happy the doctors have given me at least a
a parole, if not a pardon, and I expect to be back at my accustomed duties, although they say I must ease my way into them and not bulldoze my way into them.
Those who meet him on his return say that Dwight Eisenhower looks well. He seems forceful, alert. Before long, he will announce his decision to run again. Party, friends, and family can relax. Less than 7 months later, Ike is stricken again, this time with an old complaint, ileitis. Some surgeons predict that the odds are heavily against Eisenhower, but if good wishes count for anything, he will soon be well. Ike does bounce back, but Republican leaders are disturbed. They hope that Eisenhower will feel well enough to continue in the '56 presidential race. The press and the public are also concerned. Reporters know that the president plans only a limited effort and expects to leave most of the speech-making to his cabinet. But no news conference passes without some question about Eisenhower's ability to run or the effect of his illness on the campaign. Some of the questions are brutally frank.
I went around and talked to a number of your friends and neighbors to ask them how they felt about your running again. Well, they all love you, as you know, and they said they're going to vote for you, but really they wish that you wouldn't run because they feel you've done enough for the nation. You've made so many sacrifices, and, sir, they're afraid that you won't last out. They're afraid you won't live for another 4 years.
Well, sir, I would tell you frankly, I don't think it is too important to the individual how his end comes, and certainly he can't dictate the time. What we're talking about here is the importance to the country. And it happens that at this moment, the Republican Party apparently thinks I am still important to them and to the country. And since I believe so much in the Republican Party, and I believe that it needed rebuilding so badly, an effort which I have been making, as you well know, I said I would continue to try. But this is a decision that the American people are going to have to face. I'm flattered by what you tell me about my friends and neighbors at Gettysburg, but I have made up my mind this is the thing I should try, and we'll see what the American people have to say about it.
President, in reviewing the state of your health, how would you expect this issue to be handled in the campaign?
Well, I hadn't given any thought, but as for my part, I'm going to try to be just as truthful as I can be. And I believe this. I think even people who wouldn't classify themselves probably as my political enemies do believe I'm honest. They may call me stupid, but I think they think I'm honest.
Start your question with an implied fact that is not a fact. You say the administration's secrecy policy. There has been no administration, please sit down. There has been no administration since my memory, and I've been in this city since 1926, who's gone to such lengths to make information available as long as the national security and the national interest of this country is not involved.
Von Herberg of the Anchorage, Alaska Daily News. They're wondering up there if you contemplate a personal visit to Alaska to officially welcome it into the Union. No president, they say, has had such a privilege in 46 years.
Well, it's a tempting invitation, if that is an invitation. When is the actual date?
Oh, dear.
I guess I'll answer that.
Sir, do you feel that there are any economies that you can make in the executive branch of government to help cut government spending? For instance, would you be willing to do without that pair of helicopters that have been proposed to get it off the golf course a little faster than you can make it in a car.
Well, I don't think much of the question because no helicopters have been procured for me to go to the golf course. Thank you. That's all.
The press conference lets us know what the president is thinking about. One recurring item is the nation's economy.
What goal you're shooting for the next fiscal year?
Well, this is what I want to do. I want to get it down to the last cent that I think is needed for the security and safety for essential services in the United States. I believe we're spending too much money and contemplate spending too much money. I would take an hour to tell my full feelings on it, but I think it is too bad that we are forgetting such words as thrift and economy in this country. We're suddenly getting the theory, apparently, or maybe we're reverting to a theory that just money alone is going to make the United States greater, stronger, both at home and abroad, even though you continue to depreciate the value of that money.
Right.
Most revealing of all is Ike's knack for defining large issues in images anyone can appreciate.
Now, just a few years back, you take a workman whose job was to make wheelbarrows. And he could come at night occasionally, and he'd say, Mary, today I made the best wheelbarrow I ever made in my life. And I got the handle just so properly shaped, and they fit into my hand so well. It was so light, and the ease of turning on the bearings was so great. He said it was really a remarkable job. He said I did even a new paint job on it to get it so it just was right. It was perfect. And he had the great feeling of accomplishment, of self-expression and creation. Now he says, what does a man now have in one of these great factories? He says, and he takes a piece of metal and he says, now what has he got? What has he got to look for? Now I say this: we have got to educate people that when we've saved their time in doing this, that there is something useful. I don't care whether it's in art or literature or recreation or whatever it is. It's something that makes the race better and not worse. Now, therefore, I do not believe that leisure in itself is wicked, as long as you use that leisure for some reason that in which the human spirit finds satisfaction. And I didn't know I was going to get into preaching the sermon here. I'm sorry.
The airliner, Soviet. The airport, Washington. For the first time in history, a ruler of all the Russias descends upon the United States. Once again, we place our hopes on personal diplomacy.
I am looking forward to the talks we will have together. Although we shall not be negotiating any issues affecting the interests of other countries, I trust that a full and frank exchange of views on many subjects may contribute to better understanding on both sides of unresolved international questions. The political and social systems of our two countries differ greatly. In our system, the people themselves establish and control the government. You will find that they, like your people, want to live in peace with justice.
It is May 1st, 1960. An airplane of unusual design sweeps across the Soviet border. Its mission? To detect or photograph Russian nuclear and rocket blasts. Suddenly, something goes wrong. The wreckage of the U-2 is as strange to Americans as it is to the average Russian. To Khrushchev, however, the incident is made for melodrama. He displays the pilot's alleged spy kit, containing, he says, Russian money and a poisoned suicide needle. Although a new summit conference is only 2 weeks away, Khrushchev mutters darkly of American aggression and challenges Eisenhower to defend the U-2 missions. Some officials advise the president to deny any personal knowledge of the flights. Eisenhower prefers a more candid statement.
No one wants another Pearl Harbor. This means that we must have knowledge of military forces and preparations around the world, especially those capable of massive surprise attack. Secrecy in the Soviet Union makes this essential. In most of the world, no large-scale attack could be prepared in secret. But in the Soviet Union, there is a fetish of secrecy and concealment. This is a major cause of international tension and uneasiness today. Our deterrent must never be placed in jeopardy. The safety of the whole free world demands this. As the Secretary of State pointed out in his recent statement, ever since the beginning of my administration, I have issued directives to gather in every feasible way the information required to protect the United States and the free world against surprise attack and to enable them to make effective preparations for defense.
Has other plans. Before 2,500 amazed reporters, the Russian premier calls Ike a thief, caught red-handed in his theft.
Если вы будете укать против нас и будете опять готовить нападение, мы так ухнем, что больше не будешь укать.
Until Khrushchev's tirade, Western leaders have kept up appearances, meeting for 2 days in the hope that he will join them. His public denunciation of Ike ends all that. Newspapers call this the greatest setback of Dwight Eisenhower's career. Only a few months remain to his presidency, and the Paris meeting may have been his last opportunity to make a permanent contribution to world peace. With slight chance of success, they say, he has subjected himself to the calculated insults of the Russian premier. Others write that Khrushchev went too far, that in the violence of his attack on Ike, he lost whatever advantage the U-2 incident had given him. Ike himself says little. He keeps his own counsel and awaits the public verdict back home. Arriving at Andrews Air Force Base, Eisenhower is said to be expectant, tense and grim. Leaders of both parties, Eisenhower's family, and just plain citizens let him know how we feel. We might have been concerned with our own lost hopes. Instead, we think of his.
My good friends and fellow citizens, after a trip of this kind, you can well understand what it means to me to have this kind of a wealth. I am deeply appreciative of the trouble that each of you took to come out to this spot. It truly means a lot to me.
Relatively few months left, Ike said at the start of his world tours, and such prestige and standing as I have in the earth, I want to use it. There is no place to which I would not travel. There is no chore I would not undertake if I had any faintest hope that by so doing I would promote the general cause of world peace. A man must use the talents that he has, and goodwill was one that Eisenhower possessed more powerfully than any statesman of our day. Ike felt that if goodwill could improve the climate in which diplomacy must work, that would be reason enough to use it. In all, Ike journeyed 100,000 miles. Many millions of people, no one is sure how many, cheered him as he passed. It is too soon, as history runs, to measure Dwight Eisenhower's success as a president. As a man, he has been a phenomenon, the most personal leader of our day. The smile may have something to do with it. So, too, his warm, fatherly air. But most of all, it is in the familiar way we think of him. University president, president of the country, we called him Ike.
Well, I think that so long as I live, I will probably answer most readily to the name of Ike.